And welcome back for 05 Nation. We are live for you at this hour at the Bridget Madlanga Justice College. It is a big day in South Africa's history. It's a moment we'll be talking about for years to come. We are probing the ins and outs of the Madlanga Commission as it gets ready to launch day one of this very important commission of inquiry. Two guests with me. We're calling them the two Jeremys, and for the purposes of expedience, Jeremy Vieri, Jeremy Michaels. Jeremy Vieri, of course, we know was in the SAPS, a Major General in the South African Police Service. Jeremy Michaels is the spokesperson for the Madlanga Commission. So, JV and JM, lovely to have you with us this morning. I want to start, Jeremy, if we can, just with you very quickly from a logistical perspective. This is being touted as one of the most important inquiries that we will have in South Africa's history, but also one that is better vetted and more highly guarded than inquiries we've seen before because of the nature of who we're dealing with and what we're talking about. Just a quick concern that I want to raise with you. When we got in at 6 a.m. this morning, we were able, many of us, all of the broadcasters and various other people, were able to access this particular site, which is supposed to be a secure site. How are you managing security from this moment on as we count down the hours to the first witness of the day, and that is Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi himself?
Good morning, Iman. Let me say firstly that what happened this morning is clearly unacceptable. I have sought answers, and I'm certain that the Commission will be asking for accountability in terms of that security lapse this morning. Having said that, the building itself, the Justice College over here, has been locked down. It was swept this morning by the security services, but the issues with access control, certainly we are going to be seeking answers as to what happened. JV, for you, I mean, how is this significant? Or as Jeremy is saying, the building itself where the hearings are going to take place, where this inquiry is actually going to do its work, that's been locked down, it's been swept. What are your observations around the security issue? And the only reason I'm making an issue, quote unquote, around this is because we are dealing with highly sensitive issues. We're dealing with people at the highest level of crime intelligence and within our policing service.
When I arrived here at 5:30 this morning, like I said, the problems were evident in terms of access control. The metal detectors didn't work. There was no accreditation process of the people who already arrived here before the time. And I think one of the challenges was that the actual shift that we're seeing outside here was not on duty earlier than normal. I understand the shift, 12-hour shift, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, but perhaps for this particular event, they need to change that and maybe come on earlier.
But why would it be a concern?
We would like to have a fully fledged presence before a single person traverses this facility. If anybody tries to penetrate that, the weakest point is before. And you would want a deterrent deployment before. You would, for example, want an adequate surveillance component to be in place if it's a task force in all the high buildings surrounding this particular place, because people are going to come in here and they'll be vulnerable for a brief moment. And you would want a capability like the task force to be able to, they deploy snipers usually in certain point, to be able to deal with whatever risk that might be posed for whoever enters this premises. But these things need to be placed well before the time, in other situations, hours before anybody actually comes or traverses a particular premises.
So given these concerns and what you've said as well, that this was unacceptable, Jeremy, what happens from this moment on before we get into what this commission is going to look like in terms of its work?
Well, Iman, as I say, we are seeking answers from those responsible for the security of the premises. But as I say, and critically, the building itself has been locked down. It is secure, and we will deal with those issues during the course of this morning.
Let's get into the guts of it. First witness, first person to give testimony is the man who catalyzed what we're all here for today, and this is Lieutenant General Madlanga Judicial, the KZN Police Commissioner. Just walk us through some of the modalities of what we will begin to see in the room, the process of the inquiry.
So Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, of course, the chairperson of the commission, will open proceedings at 10 a.m. sharp. That will then be followed by an opening statement by the chief evidence leader, Advocate Terry Mutau SC. And then, of course, the big moment where Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi takes the stand, and he will be led by Advocate Mahlapi Selo SC to, of course, go back to that moment on the 6th of July when he made those very serious allegations which, again, if true, hold very grave implications for our rule of law and our constitutional order.
JV, for you, chain of evidence is going to be a critical thing that you're going to be watching throughout these proceedings. Tell us and our viewers why.
Okay. Firstly, exhibits might be presented in this particular commission by police officers who are leading testimony, including General Mkhwanazi. It's going to be important that the exhibits are preserved as it would in any high court case. And that because after this, those exhibits might be important for criminal prosecution or other processes. So the securing of those exhibits at the end of the day, and every person who handles that exhibits, that particular chain, has to be clearly documented in the forms of a chain of statements under oath as they are transferred, and also ultimately for its securing for the duration of the commission. And also now the question is, who are we going to trust with it? That is unfortunately a question I cannot answer myself, but I would assume that has been taken into account.
Well, Jeremy Michaels is sitting right next to you, and you would know because you would have a line of sight into this. So talk to us about the preservation of these exhibits against the backdrop of what Jeremy Beery has just said. And maybe if you could tease it out a little further, Jeremy, to talk about the special arrangements for in-camera witnesses.
Let me first say, Iman, that Advocate Mutau, in his opening statement, will deal with much of, these issues. And so I certainly don't want to preempt his opening statement. He will be delivering that opening statement shortly after 10 a.m. On your question related to witnesses, and certainly, the Commission has been dealing with this conundrum of, in the terms of reference, having responsibility for protecting witnesses, and at the same time having to rely on state agencies and entities that are ordinarily charged with responsibility and are responsible in terms of the law for witness protection. So this has been a bit of a conundrum. We have taken lessons from the Zondo Commission, the State Capture Commission, and we have had to innovate to make sure that we indeed ensure that witnesses are protected. But of course, we are not able to divulge the details given the sensitive nature of those arrangements.
One can appreciate what you're saying, Jeremy, that a lot of this is going to be highly specific because the process has to be integrous. But for those witnesses, because again, to raise your head above the parapet in South Africa as a whistleblower has got serious, sometimes deadly consequences. Just share those assurances again for everyone who will be testifying here at great personal risk that they will be kept safe.
Absolutely. The Commission is doing everything in its power to ensure that we preserve life and limb. Just to give you a sense, we launched a confidential and anonymous hotline for witnesses to convey information to the Commission. We have had quite a number of people coming forward. But as you say, it is high stakes, and we have been doing absolutely everything in our power to ensure that witnesses who come forward are safe and also feel safe.
When you say a high number of people coming forward, has there been a rush of people who want to get things off their chest?
We've had, since the President announced the Commission, and since the proclamation on the 23rd of July, of course, the systems were not quite in place, but we had lots of people reaching out.
Number, something, dozens, scores, hundreds?
Dozens, absolutely dozens, yes.
Dozens. Jeremy, we were chatting earlier and we talked about the fact that, and Jeremy used the term high stakes. There's a lot at stake. Not everyone inside our crime intelligence, our policing complex are singing from the same hymn sheet. There are others who have been implicated, named, who have their own networks, we are led to understand, embedded. So there are different priorities within our police service and all the networked services in our country today. I mean, what are the risks here?
I think
there are people who don't want this to go ahead.
Yeah, the first challenge is the institutions that are intelligence related to our who are also the subject of the purview of this commission, like crime intelligence and the SSA for that matter, are institutions who are supposed to detect the kind of threats that we need to perceive well before the time around this event and witnesses and whoever is part of this particular commission. The challenge is, yes, who is going to do that? Who is going to detect early enough, process enough in the institutional environment, and that while we're dealing with the very institutions that we must go to for that. So one would hope that if there are people within those institutions who are taken outside of their normal operational environment and given this particular function with all the particular resources, that it would work. But I would understand they will have to be specially vetted for that purpose if it exists. So that to me is the primary concern. But any police officer, we're dealing with a general here who's going to testify, despite the possible compromise that might be emerging from whatever findings there were. Any police officer has the duty to ensure that this process survives, that its witnesses survive this particular process. And there are many of us, and I include myself in that, who will, despite the fact that we are not in the system, we will play that role to ensure that threats are detected earlier, because some of us have a deep intelligence background, have a big detective background, and we will not stand aside and not do anything and assist when we are called upon to do that.
That's so interesting, because it gives me the sense that we're seeing one picture or one pixel in this, or a couple of pixels in this picture. What you're sharing with us is just how vast this entire picture is, how complex it is, and all the things that are happening peripherally around this commission of inquiry. People are at work, Jeremy.
Yes. But all of us have, any police officer, retired or not, we have a duty of care to ensure that this process works and that every single witness is that. And whether we speak via hotlines or whether we openly make an effort to ensure that we follow up possible threats and detect it, that is a duty I also have as a citizen in South Africa.
We'll pick up that thread later. Final word from you, Jeremy. And again, I know that your work is hard, it's complex, you've got to be really sensitive about these issues as well. But how we set the tone for today is important for how this commission is able to do its work going forward. Everything has to work as planned.
It's been a build-up of many weeks. It is highly anticipated, Iman. And certainly the level of public interest that we have seen, I think it's fair to say that this commission is unprecedented. Certainly in terms of its significance for South Africans, And given, if we look at what has been happening out on the Cape Flats, in the Western Cape, we look at, the scores of people who have died in shootings, gang warfare, and as former Major General very will attest, those gangs form part of organized crime. We know this. And so the work of the Commission, we're not only talking obviously about the Cape Flats, many parts of the country are affected by organized crime and criminal syndicates. And so the work of the Commission is really critical for South Africans. And we will, over the next few months, towards the first report that is due to the President, an interim report. And then, of course, he stipulated that he expects a final report within 6 months. Right. There will have to be some adjustment given the delays, and that is a conversation that is underway between Justice Madlanga and the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development and the President. But certainly we are very well aware of the heavy responsibility on the shoulders of the Commission as it relates to the safety and security of South Africans.
Jeremy Michaels and Jeremy Bury, thank you for that. Jeremy, you and I will continue a little bit later on. That's where we leave it for now.